Welcome to the Mid-Atlantic Regional Moving Image Archive space at the Baltimore City Archives in Baltimore City. And MARMIA is a 501c3 nonprofit. Our mission is to preserve and provide access to the moving images and recorded sounds of the Mid-Atlantic region. So this is, films, videos, compact cassette recordings that either document places and landmarks of the Mid-Atlantic, or media that was made by Mid-Atlantic residents, artists, documentarians, etc., home movies as well. So, all that type of media is really important to document our cultural heritage. MARMIA not only, helps out creators who create this kind of content, collectors who collect it, and other nonprofit organizations that have this type of media in their collections. We also collect this type of media as well. So we recently acquired a huge collection from a Baltimore TV station, WJZ TV, Channel 13, and that collection is over 20,000 items, something actually around more like 25,000 items is what we're finding. And this documents Baltimore and Maryland and Northern Virginia, a little bit of Delaware, and then also the nation, so they got national news as well. And the dates roughly span from the 1950s through the year 2000, but the real strength and bulk of the collection is news broadcasts from the late 70s through to the year 2000. But there's a lot of other public affairs programming and things like that. Oprah got her start here in Baltimore and at WJZ. So she worked there from the late 70s, I believe 76 or so, through 1983. So we have lots of footage of her as an anchor on the news desk, and then also footage of her on her first talk show, People Are Talking, that she hosted with Richard Scher in the late 70s, early 80s. We just digitized some footage. The Smithsonian National African American History Museum is helping us out to do some in-kind donation digitization, because digitization of these rare formats can get very expensive. So here at MARMIA, we have we wear a lot of different hats. So like I said, we help other people with their collections, and we offer them audio preservation services, and that can be a lot of different things. So we can inspect film here, we can repair it, and that's what a lot of this, so we're kind of using this space right now as multiple different areas, hands-on areas. So we have our film inspection, rewinds, and then splicer. I can clean film, I can fix splices. We can figure out with this light box and a loop, magnifying loop, what exactly is on the film, because that's the great thing about film, is you just shine some light through it and you can see physically what the content is. But video, on the other hand, so we have a little bit of film. We have a couple hundred reels of film, but we have thousands. That's what that 20,000 number, we have thousands of these videotapes here of varying formats. And so here are two different formats we have. I'll actually take it out. This is U-matic, otherwise known as 3/4 inch. And that is referring to the size of the tape, which is 3/4 inch wide. And as you can see, you can't actually see anything on this. So whereas film, you have a strip of film and you can shine light through it and see what it is, it's not how video works. Video, there's magnetic particles that are slapped onto this polyester tape, and those magnetic particles get played back in a very specific machine that's specific to the format. And there are tons of different video formats, and therefore tons of different video decks that you can have. So for example, we have a 3/4 inch U-matic tape, and then here we have a Betamax deck. So this tape is not going to go into this one. And if you compare, here's a Betamax tape, video cassette tape. Here is a U-matic tape. And then as a third comparison, I think everyone's probably much more familiar with VHS cassette tape, which is actually a half-inch, let's see what we have here, a half-inch wide videotape. So we have in our collection, in the WJZ collection specifically, we have mostly we have U-matic, which is a much older format than VHS here. So it's an older format than VHS here, and so it has, you know, VHS was just they just stopped manufacturing new decks, so new playback decks to watch these tapes. Now, U-matics haven't been manufactured in, their playback decks have not been manufactured in decades. So the people who know how to fix them, the parts that go into them, those have not been made in decades, and therefore they're getting more and more expensive and hard to find in good condition. In order to then digitize them or play them back, see what's on them, and then digitize them. But then, you know, potentially, so every time that you play back a tape, you know, could be damaging a little bit more, losing a little bit more information. So we try to, you know, just, you know, play back once, digitize it when we play it back. We might not know exactly what's on it, but luckily, for the most part, in the WJZ collection, they did a very good job writing on the labels what the content was. So, for example, here we have, this is from Evening Magazine, and it said on it, Linda Thompson, master edit tape, Elvis Girlfriend, and this is from October 23rd, 1978, and we digitized it, and it does indeed hold content of an interview from Evening Magazine that they did with Elvis's long-term girlfriend, an interview, so a year after he passed away, about Elvis. So that turned out to be right, and we've digitized that, and we'll be making that available online on the Internet Archive, where we have a collection page that's called Mid-Atlantic Media, and that is where we are posting all of our videos for people to be able to watch and potentially download and remake stuff as well for non-commercial purposes. And then we're also hoping to include other media from other organizations, but we're gonna start with our own collections and build up from there. Basically, we want Mid-Atlantic Media, that website, to be the one place that people go to look for content that that documents moving image and recorded sound documentation that record the history and cultural legacy of the Mid-Atlantic region. We have here a item from the WJZ collection called "What is a Baltimorean?" And I was very intrigued by this because you know, inquiring minds want to know. And so I opened it up, and it also says on it, mag narration music effects is what that means. So I knew that it was going to be magnetic, so magnetic information that they put on film. But unfortunately, and you can't smell this through the camera, but it smells horribly of vinegar. Oh, it's very overwhelming. So this is a soundtrack to, we also have the picture, the visual part of the What is a Baltimorean, but this is a soundtrack to it. So if we ever want to learn what exactly a Baltimorean is and watch this film, then we're going to have to do some major restoration work on this soundtrack. As you can see, it's horribly degraded, and a vendor will have to work on this, and this can potentially be salvaged, but it's going to cost us. So we need as much help on this collection as we can possibly get. So this is where we're going to be building our video digitization station. Doesn't look like much right now, but this is a very important part. So this is our video rack, and this is where we still, you know, part of the fundraiser is raising money to buy shelves, which actually get really expensive, that fit in here, that we can put the different decks that of the U-matic and the VHS, and actually the Betacam, which is another format that we have, that we're going to put in here, and then other aspects that help with the digitization process And then I just went to IKEA and bought the cheapest yet workable desk possible here, and we're going to be putting that together and then putting that here, and then we're going to move over our computer that's going to hook up to the video digitization station, and then after the fundraiser we'll be able to digitize our own tapes and other people's tapes as well. So this is a zine that we made for the end of our first year in 2016 as a little thank you to anyone that donated at the end of the year and telling people more about us. So we're going to do another one at the end of 2017. So keep your eyes peeled for that. All right, so we're here in the storage area for the WJZ collection, and as you can see, I'm surrounded by boxes, and within these boxes hold video cassettes, much like the ones that we saw out in our working area. So I'm going to pull, here we have, actually, from WJZ, what's been categorized so far in the inventories from previously known as unknown elements, so they're not really sure exactly what this what series it was a part of, and box 136. So I'm going to pull this out just to show you what's inside of many of these boxes, and it's just a bunch of tapes. So this one says Costa Windsurf, B and A, so that's probably B roll and A roll, Spain timeline, time machine. So we've these have been whatever's been written on the labels has been transcribed into Word documents, which isn't the most easily searchable way to find something that you might be looking for. But we're doing our best to make that more searchable, easily searchable in a database in the near future. Once again, that takes time, and then many databases are not free, so we'll have to pay for that. Jungle Headhunters here. Spain Archives Bulls. Spanish Nightlife. So it seems like they did some sort of Spain story. So we'll put this one back, and then as you can see, this is a nice box in good condition, but unfortunately the collection came to us with a lot of boxes that are not in the best condition. So we have to purchase new boxes, and that's part of the fundraiser, purchasing new boxes. As you can see, this one looks like it has some water damage that happened to it, and it's really just falling apart and really brittle. But you can see here, this is Eyewitness News. So basically just daily broadcasts. So we've got Thursday 6 p.m. broadcasts from August 11th, 1983. And then there's the noon and 11 p.m. broadcasts from the 12th. And then this one is probably the 11th, noon to 11. So typically we have every broadcast of Eyewitness News that they did. But there are some years that we don't have, that seem to be missing, that just didn't come to the collection, didn't make it. So not really sure exactly what happened to them, but we feel lucky to have what we have. So we have that, we have Raw News. Well, this is actually more of a, this over. So while this isn't, they're not actually necessarily edited stories or anything, or they're not necessarily broadcasts, like just a straight broadcast show. I believe the EL stood for edit log. Lucky number 666. So I believe it stood for edit log, and as you can see here, this is where they would just put stories that that they potentially wanted to keep and then find again at some point. So let's see, we have gas station. Unfortunately, we don't necessarily have years on this, but I think we'd be able to figure that out from the content, and then we would know. We have the the actual days of whatever year that would be. Tax investment, dinosaur egg, Baltimore County Jail, public summit, rail improvements, Xmas toys on 12/25, Christmas of some year, York Road accident. Yeah, so there's a lot. So yeah, a lot of this, they're most likely stories that were aired on Eyewitness News. But, so this is potentially where we could make up for some of the broadcasts that we don't have. We might have some of the edit logs to make up for that. Okay, so we also, not only do we have those video cassette tapes that I showed you, but we also have, I think it's about 750 of these 2-inch wide tape cartridges that typically held, you know, either just short content, so PSAs, commercials, things of that nature, you know, promos for upcoming shows or segments. So this is, and a lot of them don't have, you know, labels on them, but this one says, give me a break Friday. So I guess it was a promo for that. Boy, picked a good box because I have a bunch of, so Different Strokes, ID, Thursday, A-Week. So probably, you know, promos for those shows, but they might have had, you know, some WJZ station content, like a WJZ animation or something, being like, yeah, you know, next Friday or next Thursday on WJZ, that we would find to be really interesting. And I think a lot of people would too, you know, remember. So there's a lot of different strokes for each day. So, Wally's Workshop. Interesting. Kids in Crisis, tonight at 8. So yeah, we're these are format that we cannot do in-house. This is a very specialized format that also gets very expensive, and what they would have to do, no one really has any players to play these particular cartridges anymore and digitize them that way. So what they have to do is break into each and every cassette and or cartridge, and like I said, we have 750 of them. So they'd have to break into each and every one of them, splice them together onto bigger reels, and then digitize them that way. We also have a lot of paper-related materials to the collection from the station, and then we also have other video formats. So I'll show you one other one. I'll pull, we've got In the Spotlight, apparently, that was taped August 13th, 1988, show number 6. But then we also might have something from September 17th, so that's the thing about videotape, is that you could record over it, so, or we might have both of those things on here, so this could be the first one, this could be the second. And this is 1-inch open reel video, so this is another one that we can't do in-house, and we would have to send out to a vendor, so it would get pretty expensive. Now, you know, we only have a couple hundred reels of this as well, but still, that adds up a lot. And luckily we have this piece of paper in here that will probably tell us a little bit more about what this is. Talent Showcase Program. So we've got when it was taped, when it aired, in the spotlight. So I guess this, yeah, a talent show of local teens. Singing, dancer, rapper, LTA, awesome. So yeah, this is pretty unique documentation of, you know, how this was made as well, and who exactly worked on it, because a lot of times you don't get the credits for some of the local stuff. Just pop that back in there. And then we also have so this says Evening Magazine master list. And these need to, we need to go through and process the paper documents and then rehouse them as well. As you can see, they have not been rehoused. But, so from what I can tell, this is pretty awesome. So PM Magazine and Evening Magazine were the same thing. They were just called different things in different markets. So a lot of times, it was Evening Magazine at WGZ, but they'd get a lot of documentation from their parents and Group W who did it, who, managed the show. They would get a lot of PM Magazine, like letterhead and stickers and things like that, which is why we have a whole series called PM Magazine, even though it was aired as Evening Magazine here. So we've got rundown of today's program. So even if we don't necessarily have the program, we can have this rundown of it. And also it's just, I think, someone who would study local television production and also, TV news. Well, this was more of a, Evening Magazine was a news magazine type of show. So anyone that wanted to study the actual production of those types of shows, and potentially Group W, Westinghouse Broadcasting, if someone wanted to study that. Let's see what else we got in here. Phone message book. Ooh, that should maybe be interesting. So we have logs of who called the station. It was love at first sight. That's the message. The guy you met at the bar. Wow. Doug Hill? Okay, all right. So maybe we can finally connect those two. Baltimore District 3 leaves something at 1 p.m. Leaves dock at 1 p.m. So yeah, this is pretty interesting. Dorsey something. Right back tomorrow about flight info. Something about Good Morning America. Yeah, this is gonna be pretty interesting for some researchers someday. So yeah, so we have a lot to work on with the paper as well, as you can see. Oh, this is interesting. So this says Baltimore's Evening Magazine contributed 14 stories to the national reel in October 1990. 5 aired as leads, and then it lists them. So that's really interesting, really great information to me to know what role, WJZ played in this affiliate, like acting as an affiliate in this network. And Evening Magazine was, so all of the Group W stations had an Evening Magazine, or like I said, a PM Magazine, that they would come up with their own stories. So it was a mix of local, and then it was a mix of national content as well, or stuff that then was from like San Francisco, and then they would air that in Baltimore here. So it's kind of really important that we occasionally had contributed to things that aired nationally. And I've never really, since a lot of these collections aren't saved in both both the at the network level and then at the local affiliate level, it would be really tough for me to find out if this was saved somewhere else, or what was made by WJZ and what wasn't, other than the paper documentation, which is why that's so important. Here we have temporary storage for many of our larger reels. This is where our film from the WJZ collection, where that is being stored for right now. We got a generous donation of these types of preservation film cans from Tuscan Archival. And basically, this is what an ideal preservation storage of film would look like. This is a preservation core as well, and it's made of inert plastic. So that basically means there's no plastic in it that will interfere or degrade with any of the chemicals that make up the film, so it just basically will not degrade and cause that vinegar syndrome, that vinegar smell, and the degradation of the film. So another aspect of this film container that makes it, quote unquote, preservation grade is that it has these vents on the side here, so air can go through, and I don't know if you can see here, but there's little bumps and ridges on the bottom, and the film sits on that, and then the air flows through the bottom here and then goes under the film and keeps that airflow going. And that's so that the gases don't get trapped, because when gases are trapped, that basically causes an autocatalytic process, which will make the vinegar syndrome worse for the film. And then what happens with vinegar syndrome, so you saw the mag soundtrack, you know, the mag particles start coming off, and it smells very vinegary. It starts curling and shrinking, and then it gets really, really brittle, and many times the emulsion starts coming off. The emulsion is where the image information is stored. So that's not good. Obviously, you can't get that back. And then you can't run it through any kind of equipment other than very, very gentle equipment, so not a projector. Putting archival older film into a projector is not the best way to look at it. It's not very safe at all, especially if you haven't had the projector service and you don't know if the film has shrunken or not. So we're going to pull one of these films and take a look at them in a safe manner. So we pulled this film that says May 16th, 1971, Be Real Arts Festival. Yeah, 1971 Arts Festival. So we have old tape that has dried up and started to come off. So that's fun. So I'm going to show is the safe way to take a look and see what your film holds. We have cotton gloves here, and this is just what is known as a film rewind bench, where we're using a light box to just shine a light through and slowly go through and you know, take a look and see what we have here. So So, just slowly wind through the film, and we can check splices here and see what kind of condition they're in. So I see a tape splice, but it's a tape splice that's only on one side. You can kind of see it's holding together, so you know what I'll do is just put one more splice on the one side there, so that I'm actually going to have to there. Myself a little more slack here. Now we've got two sides, so that will hold together much better. So, back to that. So, what I can tell from film by looking through it is actually a lot. It's an information gathering project. So I can see the condition of the film, I can see whether it has a soundtrack or not, which this one, I'm not seeing a soundtrack, but it is on single perf film, which is one side of the film has perforations, which are those holes on the side. And typically that's when you see single is when you see a soundtrack on the side, but I don't see that here. So we can take a look at the content. All right, what I'm seeing, I think, is actually in front of the old Mechanic Theater, I'm thinking. And it looks like, it kind of looks like Tommy D'Alessandro, former mayor, cutting a ribbon or something. So the cool thing I can see here is that that it's color film, and many times color film from the 70s does fade, and typically it fades to magenta or red. But I'm seeing that there's not fading going on here, so that's great news. I'm not smelling any vinegar at all. This looks like great condition, and that it's so it's Kodachrome. That makes sense. Or no, it's Ektachrome. Ektachrome. Okay. And we should be able to also find an edge code on here. Now, luckily, we do have the date already, which is lovely. But many times we'll have a film that might not have any information on it. So finding an edge code will help us know when the film was manufactured. So it'll give you a year of when the film was manufactured. And then typically, since film was expensive, people would use the film at least within a year or so of its manufacture date. So you can at least get an approximate date from that. So I have found it. I know I've lost it. There we go. So edge codes typically are circles, squares, pluses, triangles, and I see here a circle and a plus. And that's definitely Tony D'Alessandro. Yeah. Very cool. So, for the WJZ collection, since it's so vast and we've only just started, our nonprofit is roughly over just about a year old. We are doing a nonprofit through Indiegogo's nonprofit arm, Generosity, and we've raised just over about $5,000, and these are our postcards that we're handing out to promote the fundraiser. And so if you check that out, you can learn more about the collection, learn more about what we plan on doing with the $14,000 that we're trying to raise, so just a little bit. We have about 9,000 more to go. We appreciate every size donation, and we're giving out some thank you gifts. So we're going to make pins out of this, the official WJZ color bars that we have, some pins, T-shirts, and then we also have a Maryland flag film tote bag that we're making, and then also we have roughly 40 video VHS tapes of this memorial that was made about Al Sanders, who is one of Baltimore's favorite WJZ, or just in general any reporter and anchor who sadly passed away in 1995. So we found a bunch of these tapes. We're keeping a few for ourselves and for our collection, but then we also, for specific level of donors, they can own one of these rare VHS cassettes for themselves.